He was the quiet hero of American cinema, the man who made the world believe in loyalty, honor, and second chances. But behind Kevin Costner's calm strength was a private storm he carried for decades. Broken trust, painful regrets, and a silence that grew heavier as the years went on. Now, at 70, the truth behind his long-hidden heartbreak has finally surfaced. And it reveals a story far more tragic than anyone ever imagined. But to understand how this tragedy took shape, we have to return to the beginning, to a boy who never felt he belonged, and who spent a lifetime searching for something he could never hold on to. Kevin Michael Costner was born on January 18, 1955, in Linwood, California, far from the sweeping plains and rugged landscapes that would one day define his screen persona. He grew up in a working-class home, raised by parents who believed in discipline, humility, and the quiet dignity of hard labor. Their lives were simple, but Kevin always sensed an invisible tension beneath the surface. A constant struggle to make ends meet, a worry they tried to hide from their children. Kevin was the youngest of three, but he rarely felt like the center of anything. He grew up shy, insecure, and unsure of his place in the world. He once admitted that, as a child, he often felt invisible. The boy who didn't quite fit in, who wasn't athletic enough, loud enough, or confident enough to catch anyone's attention. He learned early how to fade into the background, how to observe instead of speak, how to hold his feelings inside until they quietly reshaped him. And yet, there was something restless in him, a longing for open spaces, for stories bigger than the life he knew. He found comfort in daydreams, in imagining himself somewhere else, someone else. But he kept those dreams locked away, afraid the world would laugh. His parents moved often for work, which meant Kevin was constantly starting over. New schools, new towns, new faces. Each move carved another layer of distance between him and the people around him. He built walls instead of friendships, learned to rely on silence instead of trust. Then came the moment that would shape him more than he realized. The death of a close friend in a tragic accident when Kevin was young. He never spoke about it publicly in detail, but those who knew him understood how deeply it scarred him. It made him aware of how fragile life really is, and how quickly everything can disappear. But in the cracks of that grief, something awakened. A desire to live boldly, a desire to express the things he had buried for so long, a desire to tell stories before life slipped away. He didn't know it yet, but that quiet, wounded boy was walking toward a destiny that would make him a star, and a future that would test him in ways he could never prepare for. Because the tragedy in Kevin Costner's life wasn't born in fame. It began in the silence he learned to carry as a child. Kevin Costner didn't arrive in Hollywood with confidence. He arrived with uncertainty, a handful of dreams, and the haunting belief that he didn't truly belong anywhere. He worked odd jobs, slept little, auditioned often, and faced rejection after rejection. But every no seemed to carve him into someone tougher, sharper, more determined. There was a quiet fire in him now, the fire that comes from knowing how small and fragile life can be. His break came slowly, then suddenly. The big chill put him in the right rooms, Silverado introduced him to audiences, and the Untouchables announced he had arrived. But Dances with Wolves changed everything. The shy boy who once hid behind silence was now a director, a star, and a symbol of American heroism. Critics called him authentic, grounded, honorable, the kind of man Hollywood wasn't supposed to produce anymore. But with fame came a new weight. Hollywood adored him, but it also demanded perfection. Flawless performances, Flawless public image, flawless personal life. Kevin was expected to be the steady hero on and off screen, even as he felt himself cracking inside. Fame didn't erase his insecurities, it magnified them. The pressure seeped into his marriage. His long relationship with Cindy Silva, the woman who had stood by him before the spotlight, began to strain. The late nights, the constant travel, the whispers of gossip, it all pulled at their foundation. Cindy loved him fiercely, but she also feared the man he was becoming. Distant, exhausted, swallowed by the machine of fame. Their divorce in 1994 shattered him more than the public ever knew. People saw headlines. Kevin felt failure. He poured himself into work, chasing film after film, trying to outrun the personal pain he wasn't ready to face. And though he found success again with Tin Cup, Open Range, and later Yellowstone, the cracks in his personal life continued to widen. Behind the calm roles, behind the steady voice, behind the quiet strength, was a man trying to hold together a private world that kept slipping out of his hands. And what waited in the next chapter, the heartbreak that would redefine him entirely, was something even he couldn't see coming. For all his fame and fortune, Kevin Costner's greatest battles happened far from the cameras. After the collapse of his first marriage, he spent years trying to rebuild a life that felt stable, meaningful, real. Then he met Christine Baumgartner, quiet, elegant, steady. A woman who brought warmth back into a heart still bruised from the past. Together they created a family, raising 7 children in a home filled with laughter, ranch sunsets, and the kind of peace Kevin had longed for since childhood. But peace doesn't always last. Not for long. Not for someone who had spent a lifetime holding his pain in silence. As Kevin's career surged again, especially with Yellowstone, the series that resurrected his image as America's stoic hero, the pressure returned heavier than ever. Filming schedules grew brutal. Public attention intensified. The demands of portraying John Dutton slowly bled into Kevin's real life, turning long days into long absences. And then came the moment he never saw coming. In 2023, after 18 years of marriage, Christine filed for divorce. The news broke like a storm. Fans argued, tabloids speculated, and rumors swirled faster than Kevin could catch them. But behind all the noise was a man blindsided. A man who thought he had finally built the family he once feared he'd never have. The separation became one of the most painful public battles he had ever endured. Accusations, court hearings, financial tension, custody arrangements, every private wound stripped open for the world to examine. Kevin tried to stay composed, but those close to him said the breakup shattered him in a way fame never could. He fought desperately to protect his children from the chaos, even as he wrestled with the fear of losing the life he had devoted decades to building. Nights grew long, days felt heavier, and the quiet loneliness he carried from childhood, the loneliness he thought he had outrun, returned and settled over him again. The world saw Kevin Costner, the unshakable cowboy. But in truth, he was a father grieving the family that slipped through his fingers. A man who had lost love twice. A man who no longer knew what home meant. And the tragedy of it all was simple, devastating, and painfully human. He never expected to face his darkest heartbreak at 70 years old. When the storm of his divorce finally began to settle, Kevin Costner found himself standing in a silence he hadn't felt in years. The ranch was quieter. The house felt bigger. The absence at the dinner table was impossible to ignore. But somewhere within that emptiness, something unexpected began to rise. A calmer version of himself. shaped not by fame or heartbreak, but by acceptance. Kevin turned inward, the way he had as a child. He went back to what had always saved him: open skies, long drives, dusty roads, and stories that echoed the truth he was living. He spent more time with his children, not in grand gestures, but in simple moments. Evening talks, horseback rides, quiet meals where he listened more than he spoke. He understood now that healing doesn't come from pretending you're strong. It comes from letting yourself be human. Work also offered its own kind of refuge. Kevin poured himself into writing, directing, and shaping Horizon, the project he had dreamed about for decades. It wasn't just a film. It was him reclaiming a part of himself that had been buried under years of public expectation. Through the dust and drama of the Western world he created, Kevin began rebuilding something inside his own. He stopped trying to outrun grief, stopped trying to fill the silence, stopped trying to be the unbreakable man everyone expected. And in that surrender, he found a gentler strength. He leaned on faith, not loudly, not publicly, but quietly, in the way he always had, in the way he prayed for his children, his family, and even for Christine, despite the hurt they had both endured. Now, at 70, Kevin Costner stands as a man shaped by love, loss, and the long, winding roads of a life lived in full. He is no longer the cowboy who rides into the sunset untouched by tragedy. He is the man who stayed behind to feel it, to face it, and to grow from it. The world still sees him as a hero, but the truth is far more powerful. He became one long after the cameras stopped rolling. And now, at 70, Kevin Costner carries the kind of wisdom that only comes from a life cracked open by both love and loss. He no longer pretends to have all the answers. He no longer tries to fit the image Hollywood once demanded from him. Instead, he lives with a quieter honesty, a man who has lost, rebuilt, and learned to hold his heart without hiding it. He once played heroes who stood tall against impossible odds. But his real heroism came later, in the moments no camera ever captured, in choosing patience when anger would have been easier, in showing up for his children even on the days grief felt heavier than armor, in letting himself begin again, even when the world assumed he was finished. Kevin has learned that pain doesn't erase joy, and joy doesn't erase pain. They simply learn to live beside each other. He wakes up knowing that life won't always give second chances, so he creates them himself. He leans into the quiet. He lets the land heal him. He lets his work remind him who he is. And maybe that's why his story resonates so deeply. Because beneath the fame, beneath the films, beneath the legend, is a man who feels exactly what we feel: heartbreak, hope, regret, forgiveness, and the fragile courage to keep going. His tragedy is real, but so is his strength. And in the long shadows of a life lived loudly, Kevin Costner has found something rare: a softer kind of peace, shaped not by winning or losing, but by learning how to rise again. Thank you for watching. If Kevin's journey moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe for more true-life documentaries filled with courage, heartbreak, and hope.